Well, hey, it's good to see you, and unless you're living under a rock, then you've probably noticed the rapid decline in Western civilization. Now, I know there's a lot of you out there that know exactly what's happening, but for those who may not be aware, what if I told you that all of the chaos around us wasn't by chance? It's all connected to something bigger, a strategy that shapes our world in ways we're not supposed to see. This matters because it impacts our daily lives and freedoms. I've written a song called Color Revolution, which broaches a lot of these ideas. Today we're going to break down the lyrics of the song and discuss exactly what a color revolution is. The idea of the song was to puzzle together lyrics to help shed a light on how some of these seemingly unconnected occurrences were anything but random. Color revolution is a strategy to instigate political change. It often involves mass protests and unrest, appearing to be organic but often backed by powerful interests. These interests could be governments, corporations, shadow governments, or what they call the deep state. Clandestine agencies like intelligence organizations were not a part of the founding vision of the United States. The founding fathers prioritized transparency, accountability, and limited government. And they believed power should rest with the people, fearing that secret operations could undermine democracy and individual freedoms. Sound familiar? Clandestine agencies were seen as tools of authoritarian regimes, where secrecy and unaccountable power often led to corruption and oppression. At the founding, the new republic aimed to avoid these pitfalls by creating checks and balances. Public oversight and open governance were seen as essential to preserving liberty and preventing tyranny. But eventually they were created. And as always, we sold a portion of our freedom away for a perceived threat and for a supposed safety from that threat. Now here we are. The Cloward-Piven strategy was created by two professors, Richard Cloward and Francis Fox Piven, in the 1960s. They wanted to use a political idea to create big changes in the government. Their plan focused on overwhelming government systems like welfare programs by getting as many people as possible to rely on them. Having too many people on these systems would eventually cause the systems to break, forcing the government to step in with bigger programs and more control. Today, we can see that strategy at work worldwide. Policies that increase dependency on government or create chaos in economies can make people demand more government help. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, feign a reaction, and then present a solution. This gives installed leaders more power and control over our lives. The idea is that by breaking the system, the ruling elites can reorganize them in ways that benefit them, not the public. And this is the core message of my work and why I write songs like Color Revolution. Now that you understand the background, let's dive into the song and see how it works to shed a little bit of light on these issues.
Islands are for land crabs, direct energy blasts, weaponized like emergency power. The pack for the future, dehuman and useless, all hate, pillage and devour.
Alright, so there we go. It starts out by saying, islands are for land grabs. This lyric has been with the song since the song's inception. I started to write this song immediately after the Maui fires. I was so furious about that situation and the videos that were circulating on X. I had written the basic structure of the song then. If you were looking at X at that time, then I'm sure you saw everything that I saw, and we can look at some of the things here. Yeah, and there's all kinds of posts like this. Yeah, guess who owns all the land on Maui? Posted by Wall Street Apes. It looks like BlackRock has already had a massive interest in buying all the property and the land in Maui even before the fires. What an amazing coincidence. Then they do this thing where they have the community notes, and you have these fake fact checkers, fact check liars, posting their disinformation. And it isn't that I know clearly what did and didn't happen, because I don't. But I am certain that our government and quite most all the other governments are big fat liars. And they're beholden to the highest bidder or the facilitator of their preferred perversions. That's where that lyric came. It alluded to the idea of the 15-minute cities and them wanting to put something like that in there, which I have seen that they try to deny, but they're full of S. The next line was direct energy blast. And that again had to do with, the whole idea of the direct energy weapons. And again, I don't have a specific opinion on this. I don't know that that happened, and I'm not saying it did, but I am saying there are so many strange anomalies, and there was so much disgusting behavior by the authorities that, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's no evidence of this. There's no evidence of it. Yeah, there's no evidence there's not either. The funny thing were the melted cars, where the cars were just melted into the ground, like the fires were entirely too hot. And then you'd come upon a blue car. And if you didn't see that, that's the thing. And like I said, I don't know that that's anything. But I know they're liars, so why wouldn't I be suspicious of liars? The whole thing about misinformation is to discourage free thinking. It's an absurd assertion. But like I said, I put this all into the song, not that I know any of it is true, but rather when you're tracking patterns, when you're looking from the top down and you're seeing all these random things. These are just random things that don't make any sense. And so I put that in there. So the next line is weaponized like emergency power. That goes back to that whole adage of, whenever you give the government any kind of power, they never seem to give it back. There's a lot of truth to that. So they take these emergency powers like they did during the 2020 thing, and then they do their very best not to give it back. They build all of these systems into place so that the next time that they have it, they can build from that. And it just completely is an attack and assault on our freedoms and liberties. And I did the word play there, so that from the energy weapons and weaponized like power, I thought it was clever. The next thing that I was talking about was the pact for the future. If it's not the WHO, then it's the United Nations, and here we have this new treaty that does its best to incorporate us into whatever new system this is that they're pushing us towards. None of that is in the interest of the sovereignty of your nation or your own individual personal freedoms and rights. It's just a new government on top of your government that wants to tax you globally for fires that they may or may not make, for floods that they may or may not make, while they certainly have the technologies to make them. They have all of the technologies to make the weather they wish, which makes you start to ask questions about global warming. If they can make weather, why not make the weather we need? Or the convenience at which a circumstance comes up that is so detrimental, and then suddenly it's, this is a result of, you know what I'm saying. So then it says that pact for the future, it's dehuman and useless. And then into the next line where it talks about the elite pillage and devour, and to say useless elite. And that's a nod to the Yuval Harari's statement about the useless eaters, which is just disgusting, and he's a piece of S. That's just a fact that I am certain of. Because whenever you take a whole class of people, but we'll say the builders of the world, the people who did the work to build it, and then you have this class of people that sits on top with the chain whips and say, work harder, and they have all kind of money schemes and cons happening, where they're lending us our currency. We're paying for use of the currency that's supposed to represent our nation, which is not the property of our nation, and using us, the population, who's worried about things like their family and their livelihoods and the interactions that we have on our daily lives, more so than guarding ourselves against these kinds of people, so much so that we get this normalcy bias where we can't really believe that something like this would be happening. Then they come on to the internet, guys like this Yuval Harari, they start to tell the underclass that they're useless eaters and that they have a plan for this. Yeah, I'm not down with that. I say we just bring some justice to these people, bring some justice to this guy. who says it. So I want to say it in my song. I want to just remind you that the elite are useless. They're not providing us anything. They're providing us a path into a cage. It's exactly what they're providing us. On the backs of our economy, they create the systems, they create the technologies that they intend to live off of. While what? We're reduced, the population's reduced. By whose vote? Who decides this? And then if we do decide that, why does the rate of the reduction have to be immediate? It's obscene. From there we go right into the chorus.
We live into a color revolution. We live into a color revolution. Landfills filled with sea mass, climate to relieve us of our liberty and of our freedom. Carbon is for lockdown. You can thank the UN. You and I are on the fire.
All right, so that's through to the second verse. The first line of the second verse says, landfills filled with cheap masks, climate to relieve us of our liberty and of our freedom. To me, in a very short song where you try to compress ideas, it shows the absurdity of the need to make everybody put these paper masks on. And now the paper masks are all sitting in the garbage. And then the next line is, the climate's here to relieve us. So we need these paper masks in the landfills when it's on record that we didn't. So if the climate's so important, then why were we making so much waste? Just a little small nod to that. So the next thing is the climate's to relieve us from our liberties and of our freedoms. And that is with a carbon tax, and that is with restricted travel. While you have the billionaire class who have jet planes and multiple homes. And I've heard them say that they will be buying the carbon credits of the poor so that they can do what they want to. So it's so convenient for them because they will have no change in their lifestyle when they're the biggest polluters. Again, useless elite. Then the second verse concludes with, the carbon is for lockdown. You can thank the UN. You and I are under fire. That's what I already alluded to with carbon being the catalyst for getting us to restrict our own selves. And if they get us to do that, we're done. If we allow ourselves to be limited or be restricted by both these digital IDs that you see popping up right now in Australia and in Europe, by things like carbon credits, we're doomed to be restricted to a confined space. And maybe that's a neighborhood that you could traverse in 15 minutes. I don't know. But you'll be restricted to right there with a few times that you'll be allowed to leave there. I don't exactly know what they call that, but it sounds something akin to some sort of a prison, especially when these people like Bill Gates say that we should be cutting down trees. I don't understand it. Insanity. So, again, it points to the UN as culprits. They're trying to prop themselves up as an authority. This is an unelected group, and our governments have entangled our nations into this mix. And I am certain that the inducements were very enticing. From here, we reach the second chorus, and then I'm going to let that play, and we'll go right into the bridge.
We live into a color revolution.
All right, so the first part of this bridge, it says, defiance is all that there is left. And that just means that we need to just say no. No means no. We're not doing this. We need to be loud and organized, and we need to do our part to make sure that they know that we're not cooperating with this. So then it says resist and prepare to push back against. Yeah, that's where we're at. So this next I guess so. There's 2 bridges in this. I guess so. So here we are. The second bridge.
We are living through the wreckage of a freight train fallout.
All right. So the first line of this, it's a nod to the Palestine, Ohio, and the train crash there and the chemical spill. It says we're living through the wreckage of a freight train fallout. I thought that phrasing lent to giving a real sense of craziness, and thought it illustrated the point and built the song along based on things that really happened. And then going from there, we say,
All out catastrophe.
the next line is all out catastrophe, which is where we're at.
Supply chain collapsing and bridges falling. Hold your breath. It's not safe to breathe.
Yeah, and hold your breath, it's not safe to breathe. And again, that's a reference to the chemical spill over there. All right, so now we're in the pre-chorus here at the end of the song. I'm going to go ahead and play the pre-chorus through.
Bring on the fire. Come and bring on the rain. Keep right on playing. Right on playing, okay. Bring on the water. Come and bring on the flame. Here comes the fire. Incoming, here comes the rain.
All right, so the first line of this, I say, bring on the fire, which that goes back to the Maui, and it's basically saying, all right. The next line says, come and bring on the rain. And this is referring to everything that's happened in the Carolinas recently. Again, there's a lot of garbage that happened there, and I don't mean lightly of it to any of the people that had experienced such traumatic, terrible things there. But if you looked on X at the time, there was all sorts of questions about things like cloud seeding and what that could mean and how quick then they are to blame this all on climate change, which is just a win-win for them. And as I said, I certainly don't know that any of this happened. And I don't know that it didn't happen. I'm more suspicious that it did than it didn't. So it says, come and bring on the rain. And then again, it says, keep right on playing your game, which is all a taunt, being confident and saying what. So then again, it says, bring on the water, come and bring on the flame. Here comes the fire. Incoming, here comes the rain. And then that brings us to the last chorus. And then in the last chorus, I did a bunch of vocal overlays in there and to have a big chorusing effect where I repeated this pre-chorus phrasing underneath and then sang the chorus out. So I'll go ahead and play that for you now. Yeah, so that's that. The only thing I did in the final chorus was just change the end phrase to basically to tell these people that are playing with their lives that go ahead, do what you're doing, but we're bringing the pain. And by that, I mean we're bringing justice to them. It's not going to be pleasant or in their interest to have justice brought to them. And I'm certain it's not going to be easy for us to get from here to there. But for those of us that are aware of this, it's not acceptable. And for our children and for everyone that came before us and fought for our freedoms and liberties, we owe them, us standing up now. The crazy thing about all of these circumstances and how they have this all woven together worldwide is everything that happens, there's not any particular person to blame or to hold account for things. Usually that's so. And when you have these big accusations being made and they do fly in the face of normalcy bias, it's so hard for people to wrap their head around that as possibility. So the other day I was listening to Jim Brewer and he had an excellent quote. When are you going to take off the tinfoil hat? When are you going to take off the blindfold? So for me, all of this is about putting these things out there because if you don't watch for this, if you don't go look at it, if you don't suspect it, if we're not allowed to be suspicious of it, if we're not allowed to look into it, if we're not allowed to talk about it, how much easier is it to do it? So to end this on as positive a note as we can, I want to thank you so much for listening to my song and taking the time to hear my thoughts about what went into putting it together. I hope it was enjoyable for you. And If you're interested in letting me know what you think, go ahead and let me know below. If you like these songs that I'm making and you want YouTube to let you know that I have something else to share, then you know what to do. If you'd like to listen to this song without me distracting you from it, I'll put the link right there. Thank you so much. We'll talk again soon.